You unzip, you go to the urinal, and you touch yourself.
So Prey is the newest installment in the Predator franchise, and I had zero interest in seeing it. And no, it's not for the reason you probably think. I could care less that it has a female lead going up against an alien hunter. Unlike most reactionary channels, I don't try to focus on that stuff unless it's the only thing that the movie promotes, focuses on, and hyper-emphasizes. Although there was that one line in the trailer that probably didn't help things.
Why do you want to hunt? Because you all think that I can't.
Okay.
You see, for me, the reason why I wasn't interested is because most of the Predator movies kinda suck. Out of all of them, there's only two that I would actually consider good or at least enjoyable. It's almost like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Out of all those films, there's only two that I would consider good or watchable. So needless to say, my expectations were extremely low. But then I started hearing word that the movie was actually pretty good. I was still a bit skeptical because I didn't know if it was getting overly praised to counterbalance all the preemptive hate that it got. Maybe it was a mid-movie that was just getting hyped up. So I turned to you guys and asked if it was worth watching. And the results weren't looking too bad. And then I got word that it was actually directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who directed 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is a good movie that you should check out. So that gave me some more hope, but I was still cautious. So I hopped back on the Hulu, and the first thing I did was watch the latest season of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Because I'm doing something anti-racist, and I think I deserve praise for that, do I not?
You don't get praise for telling people you're not racist.
Then why am I doing it?
But after that, I finally watched Prey, and I gotta say, it's definitely the best Predator movie since the first one. And for how much that I actually like the second film, I do gotta admit that Prey is the better made movie, and all around is just a more solid film. So I'm comfortable in saying that this is easily the second best Predator movie. Now this is no perfect groundbreaking masterpiece by any means, for several reasons that I'll get into later. But first I want to tell you what this movie does right, and the stuff that I enjoyed. So kick back, relax, let's get into it.
Jacking off in a pair of acid wash, bumping Asher Roth.
So the idea is simple. A predator comes to Earth in 1700s North America, and the story follows Naru, a member of a Native American tribe who notices that something isn't right, and that there's something else out there in the woods that isn't a man or a beast, and then she goes looking for it. Eventually she encounters the Predator, who's just going around slaughtering strong animals and other people, so she must find a way to take it out. The idea is very simple, but very interesting, and I'm actually surprised they haven't done something like this before in previous movies. It's like after the first two, they just started attempting the same thing over and over again, but never really got it right. But in this one, by simply taking the Predator and putting him in a completely different time period than our own, it automatically makes things more interesting. Because you have the Predator, an alien with super advanced technology, facing off against people in an era with much inferior weaponry. And what makes it interesting is that you wonder how they're going to overcome this challenge. And overall, I thought they did a good job with this concept. Honestly, it makes me more interested in seeing more Predator movies like this, taking place in different time periods, seeing how the people of that time, with their weapons, would take out a Predator. So, interesting concept and pretty good execution. And the first thing I really want to talk about is the action. It's pretty damn sweet. It's violent, bloody, and there's some gore. And this film features some of the best Predator kills we've seen in the franchise. They're creative and pretty damn sweet. This movie does the best thing with the Predator that we haven't seen in a long time. And that's not only making the Predator feel like an actual threat, but a borderline slasher villain. Which is great, because Predator started as an action horror franchise, and this movie harkens back to that and nails that same feeling. I also think it's pretty cool that you see the Predator for a large portion of the film. You get some scenes of him by himself hunting before finally coming into contact with our protagonist. And when he is on screen, he's a force to be reckoned with. And I love seeing all the different gadgets he uses to take out people. My only gripe with the action scenes is that I feel like in a few cases, it cuts from the good bits a bit too soon. But other than that, it's all good stuff. And the next thing I want to point out is that the look of the movie is great. It was shot on location in Alberta, Canada, on the grounds of Stoney Nakoda Nation. This is where most of the film was shot, meaning that these forest areas and plains are real. And to make it feel more authentic, they shot this movie primarily with natural lighting. And it's little things like that that give this film like a very distinct look. And something else that I appreciate is that they used a practical suit for the Predator. And damn does it look good. So yeah, this is one good looking movie. The only things that look a bit off are some of the CGI animals. They aren't the best looking, but that's not really a big deal because everything else looks great. And sounds great too. The sound design is spot on, giving action scenes an extra punch. Because you can hear bones cracking and blood splattering. And there are small details like when the wind's blowing through trees. Or when the Predator is invisible, you can hear his footsteps and twigs snapping. And of course you got that signature sound. It's all top notch, including the music. At times it has a really epic feeling to it, and other times it's really good at building tension. Oh, and the pacing is pretty solid too. The movie's exactly 90 minutes, and given the simplicity of the story and the concept, I think it was a pretty decent amount of time to tell this story. Although, I actually wouldn't have minded it being just a little bit longer towards the end to really ramp up the climax and the final battle, to give it a more satisfying feeling, but we'll get to that later. But as it is, I think it's fine, and no parts really feel like they linger too long or feel drawn out. Yes, overall, it's a well-shot, well-made, good-looking movie with a simple but interesting concept that is executed pretty well. It has the action, violence, and tension to keep you entertained, and let's be honest, that's the main reason why you come to a movie like this. The bloody, violent action. And on all those fronts, I think it delivers. Although I will say, all this comes with a little bit of a caveat, because even though this stuff is good, and it does it all pretty well, it does have several issues that you have to look past to really enjoy it. Because there are things here that don't make that much sense, and are a bit dumb if I'm being honest.
Dick so big, it's like elastic. I tie it in a knot and it looks like Mr. Fantastic.
For me to really talk about some of the issues with this film, I will have to spoil some stuff, so spoilers ahead. Now, there are quite a few shortcomings in this film, and the biggest one, which is also the most frustrating, is that most of the characters and some of the moments are kind of dumb and just make me question them. And what I mean is that every character except for the protagonist and her brother are pretty incompetent, especially the other hunters in the tribe. Okay, for example, Naru sees the predator tracks and a skinned snake, and she points out that the tracks are way too big to be a bear, and all the other hunters around her just don't care. It's like, what? You aren't concerned about this at all? Okay, moving on to another example. There's a scene where they have to set a trap for a lion, and it's Naru's idea. But one of the other hunters is mocking her and saying that it's a pretty dumb plan, and says that they should be going out there looking for it, and not just setting traps. And I'm just going, are you serious? Do you guys just not track animals or set traps? Aren't you guys hunters? These should be very common things to them. And also, they're all just kind of dicks to Naru for no reason. Oh yeah, and the guy who was making fun of Naru's plan, he immediately gets killed by the lion. Yeah, so nearly every character outside of Naru and her brother are pretty dumb, and it doesn't make that much sense on why they would be. Now moving on to my next issue, which is, there are a few pretty weird moments, and Naru does things that aren't really addressed and are just kind of brushed over. There's a strange bit where she's facing off against the mountain lion in a tree, then she slips and falls and gets knocked out. She then wakes up and is back home, and it's explained that her brother carried her and then went back to kill the lion. So think about that. She gets knocked out while fighting the lion, while her brother is nowhere in sight, then he comes back, chases the lion away, carries his sister back, then goes back out to continue looking for the lion. It's a very strange string of events. And what's also strange is the fact that Naru actually stops doing her duties of gathering to go off and train with her axe. And then later on, she just kind of leaves the tribe to go hunting for the predator. And she doesn't really face consequences for it. It's like they're cool with you just not doing your part for the tribe, or just bouncing without a word. It's things like this you have to not think too hard about, or you'll start to realize that things just seem very strange and don't make that much sense. This next bit is a spoiler for the ending and the final battle between the predator and Naru. And basically I thought it was a bit rushed. The fight was cool, but I thought it ended pretty quickly, and I'm not the biggest fan of how she killed the predator. Basically he gets taken out by his own weapons, because he forgot how his own technology works. I just thought it was overall a little lackluster, and kind of dumb honestly. I do like how throughout the movie she is studying and learning about the predator, but she pretty quickly thinks up this trap and this plan, and took him out relatively easily I think. I was just personally hoping for like a longer battle, and this is where I feel like the movie could have been about 5 or 10 minutes longer, you know, leading up to the final battle and the final battle itself. But to top it all off, Naru just isn't that interesting. She's serviceable, she's what the plot needed, or else the movie just wouldn't happen, but she doesn't go through that big of a change by the end of it. In the beginning, she's pretty good at tracking, hunting, and medicine, and then by the end, she's just better at all those things, which is fine because the appeal of the movie is seeing how she can put her skills to test against the predator, and then seeing her study and learn about the predator, then eventually taking it down. You know, that's the biggest appeal of these films. But I'm not gonna lie and say that she's very entertaining or charismatic or likable. She's very serviceable and she's what the movie needed, which I guess is fine, but I still want to at least mention it. Also, I really didn't feel the bond between her and her brother. The relationship felt really underbaked. So towards the end when she wanted to kill the predator for revenge, I didn't really feel it. Matter of fact, most of the characters are very surface level. So if you look past all that, Prey is a really solid movie that's really entertaining and a lot of fun. It's really great in a lot of aspects, even though the writing can drag the film down at times. It's the kind of movie where you gotta turn your brain off and not really question it, and instead just enjoy the awesome shit you're seeing on screen. But honestly, even with all these issues, I still think it's the second best Predator film. Even though some of the characters are really dumb and the protagonist isn't that interesting, I think it's a well shot, well made movie that remains very entertaining throughout, whose highs definitely help outweigh the lows. And like I mentioned like a million times already, the bloody gory action is awesome, and really it's worth watching for those scenes alone. I definitely recommend checking it out, but try not to think too hard about it, or else it'll probably frustrate you and you'll end up hating it. But that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it, and leave a comment, let me know what you think about Prey. Where would you rank it amongst the Predator films? And of course, I'd like to give a nice big shout out to the channel members. Thanks to your guys' support, I'm able to keep dangerously high amounts of monster flowing through my body. Predator ain't the only one who bleeds green, know what I'm saying? If you're interested in becoming a channel member, click the join button down below. If the perks interest you, consider joining. Or not, it don't matter.
None of this matters.
Open. Don't mind if I do. Don't mind if I do.
Give me what I want!